everyone, welcome to our 6 p.m. edition of Arirang News on National Liberation Day, or Gwangbokjeol in Korean, the day Korea was liberated from Japan's 35 years of colonial rule. Today, August 15th, marks the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule. A major celebration is set to take place tonight in downtown Seoul, and President Lee Jae-myung will be participating. For more on this, let's go live to our presidential office correspondent Song Yujin. Yujin, tell us more.
Right, good evening, Inji. So I'm currently at our news booth, which is in Gwanghwamun Square, where the ceremony and the major festival titled 80 Years of Liberation, Future Established by People's Sovereignty, will begin in less than 2 hours. So as you can see, probably behind me, the staff here are busy with final preparations, mainly because tonight's ceremony is not just about celebrating National Liberation Day. It will also feature what the government calls the People's Mandate Ceremony. So you could kind of see it as a de facto inauguration of President Lee Jae-myung, who you will remember that back in June started his term without a formal ceremony after winning a snap presidential election.
The People's Mandate Ceremony is meant to celebrate the birth of the new administration, which was born from the people's sovereignty and overcame illegal martial law and insurrection.
Now, during the event, President Lee will receive symbolic letters of appointment from selected members of the public, followed by his thank you address. Now, meanwhile, as we speak, I also want to mention that the president is currently hosting a dinner with foreign diplomats, as well as heads of international organizations at Cheongwade's Yeongbin-gwan Reception Hall.
Right, a very busy day for the president. He also delivered his first Liberation Day address since taking office at the Liberation Day commemorative ceremony, right? What were the key takeaways?
Right, so President Lee indeed delivered his Liberation Day address, and following his predecessors, he first took the time to express his gratitude and honoring the independence activists who fought for the country's liberation. And at the same time, he also laid out his messages to North Korea and Japan. Now, I want to first talk about North Korea, where the president first reaffirmed his commitment to resuming dialogue, and he also stressed that Seoul respects Pyongyang's system and that it will never pursue reunification by absorption. Take a listen.
남북 간 우발적 충돌 방지와 군사적 신뢰 구축을 위해 9.19 군사 합의를 선제적으로 그리고 단계적으로 복원해 나가겠습니다. 대립과 적대의 시대를 끝내고 평화 공존과 공동 성장의 한반도 새 시대를 함께 열어갈 적기라고 생각합니다.
President Lee also stressed that a nuclear-free Korean peninsula must be achieved through both international cooperation as well as direct talks with Pyongyang and between North Korea and the United States. And turning to Japan, where a summit between President Lee and Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is set for next week, the president also reiterated his so-called two-track policy of separating historical disputes with future bilateral cooperation.
셔틀 외교를 통해 자주 만나고 솔직히 대화하면서 일본과 미래지향적인 상생 협력의 길을 모색하겠습니다. 일본 정부가 과거의 아픈 역사를 직시하고 양국 간 신뢰가 훼손되지 않게 노력해 줄 것으로 기대합니다.
And that's all I have for now, but I'll be back once our special live coverage of the People's Mandate Ceremony begins. Back to you, Eunji.
All right, thank you for that, Yujin. Now, as South Korea marks its liberation from Japanese colonial rule, the faces and voices of independence heroes are being brought back to life at a special exhibition here in Seoul with the help of artificial intelligence. Our Park Hyo-bin was there.
5 Korean independence heroes stand before the national flag of Korea, raising their hands in triumph. To mark the 80th Liberation Day of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule, the National Museum of Korea has restored the faces of 5 iconic figures using cutting-edge AI technology. Right behind me, there are 5 Korean independence heroes brought back to life using AI. They never lived to see Korea's independence. But today, they are smiling at us as if they are seeing the free Korea that they once dreamed of. An Jung-gun, who assassinated Japanese Governor Ito Hirobumi, now waves with a bright smile. Yu Gun-sun, who died in prison at 17, appears as a shy girl with gentle smile. Lee Bong-chang and Yoon Bong-gil, who threw bombs at Japanese leaders, come alive with warm expressions. And An Chang-ho, an educator and activist, greets with a friendly wave.
It was amazing to see what I had only imagined from textbooks. Since it's the 80th anniversary, it really feels like a meaningful exhibition.
Through AI recreation, I could almost feel their spirit and character.
It's not just their faces that have returned. A separate video project by the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs and a local company used AI to recreate the sound of cheers from 1945, the very moment Korea regained its freedom. Behind that joy lies a darker history, one the museum is also determined to show. For the first time ever, Japan's surveillance cards of independence heroes are on display. In particular, the 5 surveillance cards of An Chang-ho show how his face grew notably gaunt through repeated imprisonments.
These cards were made to systematically manage imprisoned independence activists. They're about palm-sized, but filled with detailed information, including names and photos.
Liberation Day in Korea is more than a historical anniversary. It's a moment to reflect on the cost of freedom and to honor those who paid that price. And now, with AI, the voices and faces of Korea's fight for independence can finally be seen and heard. Park Hoo-bin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in North Korea, the regime's leader Kim Jong-un has hailed the country's solidarity with Russia as infinite might. North Korea's state news agency, the KCNA, reported on Friday that Kim delivered the remarks marking the 80th anniversary of the Korean Peninsula's liberation from Japan's colonial rule, with Russian officials in attendance. This marks the first time he has given a public speech on the August 15th anniversary. Kim highlighted the infinite might of North Korea-Russia solidarity, which he stated was forged with sublime ideas and genuine friendship. However, Kim made no mention of relations with either South Korea or the United States. Japanese Prime Minister used the term regret in a memorial speech for the war dead for the first time in 13 years. Addressing the 80th anniversary of Japan's World War II defeat on Friday, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba emphasized that Japan must engrave in its hearts the regrets and lessons of that war. The practice of mentioning neighboring countries suffering and expressing remorse on War Memorial Day had largely ceased following former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's return to power in 2012. However, Ishiba did not directly name neighboring countries that were subjected to colonial rule as a result of Japan's aggression in the war. In other news, a day ahead of Friday's summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, both leaders have contrasting priorities regarding the prolonged conflict in Ukraine. Our Moon Ji-young explains more.
The summit between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska comes as the international community watches closely for any potential breakthrough in the war in Ukraine. While President Putin has consistently affirmed Russia's objective is to secure Ukrainian territory, President Trump has made his aspirations clear to emerge as a global peacemaker.
We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. And maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along. I would say that tomorrow, all I want to do is set the table for the next meeting, which should happen shortly.
The Kremlin announced on Thursday that the main topic of the summit would be resolving the war in Ukraine. President Putin commented on President Trump's efforts to end the Ukraine conflict, noting they were quite energetic and sincere during a meeting with senior Russian officials. This remark has been interpreted by some, including Bloomberg, as part of a flattery strategy that has previously proven effective with Trump. Putin also expressed Russia's willingness to engage in discussions for a new arms control treaty with the U.S. This signals a shift from Moscow's prior hardline stance, which saw Russia declare its non-participation in extending the New START treaty, set to expire in February next year, and withdrawing its ratification of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Adding to Russia's ongoing diplomatic outreach, the chief of its parliamentary lower house met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang on Thursday, conveying greetings from President Putin, according to TASS. 문지영, 아리랑 뉴스.
That's all we have for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching.